The Marvel Cinematic Universe is just popcorn entertainment. Ultimately, it has no depth. I prefer intellectually stimulating films with real drama and stakes, like Pulp Fiction and Taxi Driver. There's just nothing here of any depth. It lacks depth, and it needs more depth. In 1978, Richard Donner introduced the silver screen to the superhero with Superman the Movie, a film that served not only to capitalize on the popularity of the titular DC comic book superhero, but to transcend the throwaway confection of these children's stories and make the concept of a superhero appeal to the entire world in the medium of film. At the time, the Superman comic books were focused more on the spectacle of Superman saving the day from ever-escalating threats, and the origins of the character weren't so much a story in their own right, but simply an explanation for why Superman is capable of such feats. One of the ways 1978 Superman captivated a significantly larger demographic was by incorporating the origins of Superman further into his character and into a larger story. Audiences can relate much more to a character that starts from humble beginnings before being whisked off into adventures where the sky's the limit. Since then, not only has the superhero film become its own subgenre and cultural phenomenon, but the concept of the origin story has become a staple of the subgenre, with films like 1989's Batman, 2002's Spider-Man, and 2008's Iron Man continuing the trend of incorporating the character's beginnings into the debut story. Since 2008's Iron Man launched the global phenomenon that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not only have superheroes in cinema become more commonplace, but with it the superhero origin story, with cinematic events not only dedicated to cultural icons like Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man, but also superhero characters that are not as heavily integrated into Western pop culture. Because of that, more superheroes equals more beginnings, and more beginnings equal more origin stories, which presents a new obstacle. The origin story is a formula in of itself. An everyday person discovers power within themselves, be it metaphysical, fantastical abstracts, or a more realistic power such as influence or finance. Something happens to that person that leads them to utilize that power for a moral cause. Now, with a subgenre as saturated as superhero cinema, how do you avoid this subgenre from becoming formulaic and stale, especially when the Marvel Cinematic Universe has lasted over 10 years with over 20 films currently in the back catalogue, and an abundance of other studios taking a stab at the superhero subgenre? Enter the world of Wanda Maximoff. We first met Wanda Maximoff and her brother Pietro in Avengers Age of Ultron, a sequel made to pay off the events of Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A strange place to include not only an introductory story for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's most powerful hero, but also an origin story for her beloved Synthezoid. What we know about Wanda in Avengers Age of Ultron is that she's motivated by grief and anger. When she was a child growing up in Sokovia, her parents were killed by a Stark-branded weapon, and since that event, she and Pietro have been searching for direction in their lives before being imprisoned and experimented on by Baron Strucker, the implication being that he has fashioned them into weapons to be used against all opposition, including the Avengers, before the two escape and are recruited by Ultron to perform the very same task. What's interesting here is that all of this happens in the background of the Avengers story, which is only fitting as Wanda Maximoff is by design an outcast. The traumatic loss of her parents has caused her to lose any sense of self-concept, longing for purpose, longing to be recruited for a greater cause, but completely lacking in any kind of direction or self-actualization. Her parents were killed in front of her very eyes by a Stark weapon, and her trauma and lack of self-concept has led her to work alongside the ultimate weapon created by Tony Stark, Ultron. she eventually learns that Ultron and the weapon that killed her parents have one thing in common. Both were born out of the hubris of Tony Stark, both to protect the world, but both of which only put innocent people in danger and more blood on Tony's hands, which plays into the central theme of weapons being used as defense, an attack for the sake of defense. The missile was a weapon intended for defense. It killed innocent people. Ultron was a weapon intended for defense. He killed innocent people. Wanda and Pietro are now being used as weapons. For Wanda to win, she needs to break the cycle, to no longer be a weapon but to be an Avenger, which is where she finds her place working alongside Hawkeye against Ultron. Now enter the Vision. In a last-ditch effort to make things right, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner effectively rework their initial strategy with Ultron, but with a far more trustworthy AI, Jarvis, splicing him with the Mind Stone and an artificial human body to create the Vision, one more weapon created to destroy Ultron. After everything she's been through, the only person Wanda feels she can truly rely on is Pietro Maximoff. Pietro is all she has known of any humanity while growing through her formative years. Beyond the imprisonment, experimentation, trauma, and the struggles of self-conceptualization, Pietro has been the basis for her very sense of humanity, just as she has been for Pietro. Two twins that rely on each other, that have each other's backs no matter what. But in one fell swoop, Ultron destroys Pietro. Another weapon created by Tony Stark has taken the very last part of her family from her, the last part of her humanity. As the one to destroy Ultron Prime, Wanda avenges the death of her brother before bracing for her inevitable death in the destruction of Sokovia until she is swooped up and rescued by the Vision. A large theme of Avengers Age of Ultron is family. Wanda and Pietro, Hulk and Black Widow, Clint Barton and his family. Clint is very much the guiding force that brings Wanda into the family that is the Avengers. This is where Wanda's introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now complete as she becomes an Avenger. Except wait, Steve Rogers is Captain America, Tony Stark is Iron Man, Bruce Banner is the Hulk, Natasha Romanoff is Black Widow, and yet Wanda Maximoff is just kinda an Avenger. While we have the catalyst of her story presented in the background of Avengers Age of Ultron, she finds a new family and her place in this world. Her journey of self-concept, though, is still not yet complete. She goes on to fight alongside Captain America in Lagos, realizing that she still can't quite shake her internalized identity as a destructive weapon. She's inexperienced, she's chaotic, and the eyes of judgment are upon her, with the exception of one candy-colored British robot, her protector, the one who keeps her company without condition, he who is kind and gentle, one singular constant, the Vision. The Vision has his own struggles of self-concept. He was created to be a weapon. He too is an outsider to humanity. With that in common, the Vision is the only one to truly understand her own sense of humanity, so he can see her for who she truly is, to take into account how she feels with all that she has done, with all that she has experienced, and all that she is, becoming her one true comfort zone in all this. But when Thanos and the Black Order cast a shadow over the entire universe, Wanda has yet again to bid farewell to her sense of humanity and sacrifice Vision for the greater good, only for Thanos to then undo that and kill him again in front of her very eyes, putting her through that traumatic experience all over again for no actual reason at all. Thanos, you sadistic fuck. And so half of the universe is wiped out. Either way, Vision had to die, but then during the events of Avengers Endgame, pretty much everybody makes a comeback, except for Vision. Wanda now has nobody. In a world where nobody's ever truly dead, meet the unluckiest girl alive. It seems like the end of the road for Wanda Maximoff, arguably the MCU's most tragic character. While she has little in common with her comics counterpart, this is understandable, as many aspects of her story were off-bounds to Marvel Studios, as Fox held the rights to the X-Men, the Mutants, Magneto, many aspects that were typically a major part in the world of Wanda and her origins. This is still a fine adaptation, though. The woman searching for a sense of self, finding family in the Avengers only to lose it all. A tragic tale meets its conclusion. Enter the epilogue. Wanda has infiltrated the Sword facility to pay tribute to her lost love in hopes she can get closure with him, but unfortunately, he's being disassembled in front of her very eyes, his soul no longer present as she states she can no longer feel him. The vision is gone. No funeral, no goodbye, no justice. Thanos has taken him from her for good. The Avengers have disbanded. Her sense of family and belonging dissipated. The journey is over. Her story is over. Her life, as she ever knew it, is over. And worse yet, it never even began. She spent most of her life indoctrinated by Baron Strucker. She then went on to work for the same weapons that took her life away from her in the first place. She found her place with a team of Avengers that never understood her, that never reached her sense of humanity, with the only one to understand her being a completely artificial being that just happened to be one of the few heroes that didn't make it home during the events of Avengers Endgame. And he doesn't even get a funeral. He's not seen as a human by the rest of the world, when to Wanda he's the one piece of humanity that she had. So here's the question. What the hell does a person do in that situation? She finally uses her power, not in pursuit of any cause, be it the Avengers, or Strucker, or Ultron, but in service of herself, creating a hex around her new home of Westview, creating the ideal life she aspired to have as a child. The Vision is back, Pietro is back, she's got children, she's got a family, she's got a happy life. But one problem. Innocent people are caught up in this. In order to craft this world, she's had to effectively force an entire town to live out her fantasy against their will, robbing them of their humanity. They serve her, just as she served Strucker and Ultron. Their individuality gone, their lives and free will stolen from them, just as hers was. Enter Agatha Harkness, a Salem witch who's been interfering with Wanda's idealized world for her own benefit, manipulating Wanda once again. The cycle needs to break. Agnes serves as a reminder of Wanda's every insecurity, her every fear, her every trauma, her every sickness, and Wanda must face her head on and overcome her power which matches her own. Through defeating Agnes and making things right in Westview, Wanda Maximoff finally reaches a point of self-actualization. She's not just a traumatized girl who lost her parents. She's not a weapon. She's not just an Avenger. She is the Scarlet Witch, complete with a faithful depiction of her costume from the Marvel Comics, including her iconic tiara. She sacrifices it all one last time, bidding farewell to her ideal life, bidding farewell to her home, her vision, her children, and she steps back out into the real world, no longer as Wanda Maximoff, but as the Scarlet Witch. The story of Wanda Maximoff is a story so far told in 3 acts, with the origins of the Scarlet Witch taking place in the 3rd act, giving way for a new story to begin from here. What I thought was merely a brand new take on the character of Wanda from the Marvel Comics culminated in a unique and devastating origin story for one of Marvel's most powerful heroes, and in that sense, it doesn't matter that we didn't get cameos galore in this show, like many of us may have expected, although I would consider the Quicksilver twist to be just a bit contentious. I mean, why even include Evan Peters as Pietro if you're not gonna pay it off in any way? What, oh, just for a dick joke? Very clever, Marvel. Very fucking clever. Very well, very good. What a sad little life you must live, Marvel. What a sad, sorry little life. Sorry, let me just shake that off. Sorry about that. I don't get it, okay? Well, anyway, the story of Wanda Maximoff subverts the superhero origin story trope into an incredible, twisted, and unique way. And that is truly worthy of all the commendation I have, resulting in Wanda being easily one of the most complex and rich characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that has ever been delivered. Which is crazy, considering that the first and second acts of her story took place in the background of the stories of other Avengers, such as Iron Man and Captain America. The fall of Wanda Maximoff is tragic, but be that as it may, the rise of the Scarlet Witch is a triumph for Wanda, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for the audience alike. I don't think I've ever before seen a superhero character's origin story play out over the course of 4 films and a TV series without getting bored by it, but this was a hell of an effective way of doing this. Setting the Scarlet Witch aside from your average everyday superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But what do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is a link tree where you can see all of my different other social media outputs, as well as websites where you can support this channel, which would be truly appreciated. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.